and then I'm gonna tweet it and then send the link to you.
Yeah, I might go.
Send blank.
I don't know what Zoom does when I click out of it.
It just puts your name up on the screen instead of.
Okay, so I'm just gonna share this out real quick, and then I'll jump back on.
All right, here you are. Did you get it?
Did you email it to me?
I put it in the chat window. Oh, you probably can't see the chat window. That's funny.
Let me see if I can find the chat window.
Do you see it there?
Yeah. Well, no. Chat. Yeah, here we go. Do you get many people watching live?
You know, I don't pay attention because I'm a one-man show and it pulls me away from actually doing the conversation. So sure. I really have no idea. It's possible.
We'll see. What's the name of the channel?
Right now it's called the Andy Petronic Podcast. I'm changing the name of it soon, but right now it's just called the Andy Petronic Podcast with the whole life challenge.
Yeah, there we go. All right, just a second.
Go up. That's really weird. Oh, there we go. Put it on Facebook too.
Do you take questions and stuff if people post them?
Those are great questions, and these are things I should do. But again, because I'm a one-man show, I don't.
It's like impossible.
I'm not checking live, so
right.
I don't know. And and I've just literally just started doing this, so I've only had like 4 episodes that have done this.
That's awesome. Yeah, I if I had my own podcast, I'd definitely try to add the video thing. I think I don't do a ton of podcasts. I wish I did. I just don't have a very long commute or anything, but I like to watch the videos better.
Yeah, it's it just brings a whole nother level of engagement. I listen a lot or watch a lot to Jordan Peterson.
Oh, nice. Yeah, for sure.
It's very helpful to sometimes I just like to listen, but it's helpful to have the video. It helps me keep engaged.
I'm not going to admit to watching video on driving on air.
Exactly. I don't watch those. I listen to those. Right.
There you go. Nice. All right, cool, man. I don't know. I shared it out to a few different things, but it'll be cool. I should do one more.
All right, I just put it up.
All right, sweet.
All right, done deal. Well, get this party started. For anybody out there that's already tuned in, we are live on YouTube with Paul Grieve of PastureBird.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome. It's great to have you.
Yeah, same. Excited.
Well, obviously, I've been excited to have this for a while. Last time it didn't work out. The schedule gods didn't. I don't know what happened. It just happened that way. No big deal.
Well, we will get you down to the farm within the next couple months.
I cannot wait to come out. I can't wait to come out there because I love what you guys have going on.
Absolutely, man.
I have one experience taking care of chickens when I was, I think it was in 8th grade. We moved into a really good friend of my mom's, went to Nova Scotia for the summer, and they went away for 2 months. And my mom agreed to move into their house and take care of their chickens. And they had about 50 chickens. And the only thing I really remember from it was a lot of fun. it wasn't that hard work because they had it all kind of dialed in. But there was one chicken that was that was, I don't know if it was a chick when we got there or what, but it grew, it got older as it was getting older. It was growing this deformed foot, and the foot was all big, and like my mom, like thinking like a normal person would, like every baby matters. We got to figure out what's wrong with this chicken. So we went into town. We went to the veterinarian. We tried to figure out what was wrong with this chicken, and I think the chicken actually died. I don't really remember, but you got a lot of chickens to take care of. You might not have to take care of them like a human does with their baby.
Yeah, we might have taken care of that one a little bit differently.
How many chickens do you guys have?
Right this second, I got 50,000 chickens out on pasture.
Yeah, that's a whole different deal.
Yeah, for sure. We still care about each one just as much, but yeah, we take care of those ones a little bit differently on the farm. You
don't name them all, do you?
Oh yeah, every single one's got a name.
Wow, and you keep track of them. Like
future dinner, yeah.
It's right. Do you guys have layers and what, I don't even know what you call them.
You call them a meat chicken. It's called a broiler. So you call it a meat chicken, but no, we're mostly a broiler farm. So we do mostly meat chickens. Big fan of layers and stuff. We have about 200, but our main business is definitely selling fresh meat.
Hilarious. You know what I did? Forgot to hit record on my podcast recorder. So it's
Dude,
going on YouTube, but now
I've done like 2 podcasts where we figured that out at the end, and it was horrible.
Oh God, yes, that's happened to me one time. I've done 150 episodes, and that happened to me once.
It's almost just like, dude, we can't even try to do this again. It's like trying to rewrite an essay that you lost. Like, it's just not gonna be the same.
Totally. I did it once before where I recorded on YouTube and I forgot to press the record on my recorder. So we were able to grab the audio from YouTube. So not as good, but
right.
Thankfully. So 50,000 chickens. Now, I just got to ask you this question because a lot of people don't know why we're even talking,
right,
or anything about what you do. Obviously, they know you're a chicken farmer. I think at this point, I don't think that 50,000 chickens is not a hobby.
That's no longer a hobby.
It's no longer. What point does it become not a hobby?
That's a good question, man. I'd say once you're like taking, your family's income is coming from the farm and you've got employees that depend on that, that's really not a hobby anymore,
At what number was that, and how long ago did that occur for you guys?
So we kind of started with 50 chickens in the backyard, kind of like your grandma did. And we had that, and we just basically grabbed those for ourselves and our family. It was a joke. We're joking around about getting chickens, kind of tired of the free range, kind of fake labels, all that stuff. And we said, oh yeah, let's just get 50 chickens and like raise them for ourselves, just as a hobby.
What do you mean you got tired of the labels? Like, tell me about that part of.
Oh, dude, we'll get into it, man. But let's put it this way, as a summary overview: a free range chicken, usually they've never been outside. An antibiotic free chicken has probably had antibiotics its whole life. An organic chicken looks the exact same as the factory farm pictures that you see in the store. Hormone free, cage free, all that stuff. It's all BS. Like, it's insane. Really? It's so bad now to the point where it's just intentional deception. And you got hardworking families trying to do right by their kids and feed them the best food, and they're just taking advantage of loopholes in the labeling system. So we just got fed up with it. We got sick of it. And we started following this guy called Joel Salatin, who's a farmer out of Virginia, and just geeking out on his stuff. And I was working an office job.
Did you learn about him from Michael Pollan's book?
I mean, that's where he kind of made his name for sure. Omnivore's Dilemma. And he was also at the end of Food Inc. And that was a pretty hard hitting documentary for us of just how bad the system's really gotten. And so we'll get into this stuff, but I'm as against factory farming as anybody else, that's listening right now. So I want to make that clear right up front. I'm not pro meat. I'm pro meat done the right way. But we just got so sick of it. And we ordered 50 chicks, completely naive. I mean, I grew up in downtown Seattle. I had no idea what I was doing. Put them outside, raised them the way we thought it should be done, which we didn't know any better.
What were you doing for a living at the time? I
was an accountant. Yes, I was actually a CPA.
Wow.
And I had gone to CPA from a military. I was an officer in the Marine Corps before that, and then a college athlete before that. So it was like this crazy journey already.
Right.
And all my friends were like, dude, are you freaking kidding? Like, you're going to do it now? You're going to be a farmer. Okay. Yeah. Good luck with that. So it was a family affair though, man. And my whole family just jumped in head first, and we got these birds, and we thought we were going to raise them for ourselves. And I put a couple posts up on Facebook, and people were getting excited and putting down deposits. And so all 50 birds sold out before we even harvested them.
Wow.
And my family was all pissed at me because they didn't have any chicken to eat, So then the next time we did 100, and then 200, and then 500, and 1,000, and pretty soon we're the biggest pasture poultry company around.
Did you just happen to have land available? Like, were you?
No, not at all. So we started on my in-laws had about a quarter acre in their backyard. Okay. And we actually grew, a 6-figure business just right there in their backyard. We were doing farm tours and people driving down from LA to see this little backyard with some chickens and sheep in it and stuff. And
wow, we
cut our teeth with nothing, dude. We funded the business with $2,000 total, and we didn't have extra money. So we just put it in, and we said, if it takes, it takes. We're not going to put any more money into this thing though. And we didn't want to take any debt. So it was just 9 of us living in a 1,700 square foot house at one point. Didn't take a salary and worked full time for 2 years, and just, it was the American dream a little bit.
Did, why chickens? Like, what was it, just because it was easy?
No, chicken's really complicated actually compared to beef and lamb, some of your other red meats. I think chicken's actually a lot more complicated in certain ways. So we started with everything. We have a company called Primal Pastures. It's an e-commerce pasture raised livestock company. And we started with beef, lamb, chicken, pork, fish. And we just wanted to provide good food for people, and stuff that you couldn't find in the grocery store. And we started raising all these different kinds of animals, and sort of like looked at our climate and what was available in the stores and what wasn't available in the stores. And like, I don't know about you, but we can find good grass-fed beef a lot of places now. Yep. It's all over the internet. You can find it like in the grocery store and whatnot. But pasture raised chicken was like nowhere to be found. And we just looked at small amount of land that we had, wasn't going to support a big herd of cows. But you can do a lot of chickens on a small piece of land. And then the turnarounds, we didn't have any money. So like we needed to be able to turn around animals in 10 weeks, not 2 years. And so that worked really well for us. And then the climate in Southern California. So we're south of LA and north of San Diego. And it was really ideal for raising chickens outside 12 months out of the year. So all those things lined up, and we're like pointing us towards chicken, and we're having good success with it. So we're just like doubled down on the chicken thing and taking it from there.
Did out how you wanted to do it, like how you wanted to raise them, and like kind of like what we did was, when we're trying to deal with one little chickie at a time, like how did you manage that and negotiate that?
I mean, it was like OJT, they call it in the military, on the job trainings. You just make mistakes and you learn, farming, what's cool is it's pretty instinctual. It's a little bit like the ancestral health and the ancestral food and movement. It just feels right when you're doing it right. It looks good. It smells good. The animals are happy. Like, you don't have to be a farmer to tell when an animal's stoked. It's out running around and foraging and, growing really healthy and active and all that stuff. So it's pretty instinctual, really. We're all agrarian, not more than probably 4 generations before us. So it's kind of in your blood. But Joel Salatin was a huge influence on us. Alan Savory and the Savory Institute was a huge influence for us. And it goes back to that idea that like, we can produce good food, but also be a net positive to the land and the environment. That was huge for me. The idea that this doesn't have to be taxing to the environment. It can actually be a super big positive and sequester carbon and build soil and all this cool stuff. But it's all about how you do it.
Right. So the how really matters.
Yeah, my favorite new documentary that's going to come out, it's called It's Not the Cow, It's the How. And the concept behind that is like, you can have cows in a factory farm that put out so much greenhouse gas and they're so bad for the environment and all this stuff. Or you can run cows in a holistic management prairie system where you're actually restoring the land and like building soil. It's not the cow's fault, it's the way that we manage them that's really the deal breaker. Yeah,
I had Bobby Gill on the podcast from the Savory Institute about 6 months ago, and we talked about how regenerative farming actually restores the land, and in a way that vegetable only farming can't do.
Exactly.
So it's a really interesting topic.
Well, one of the most interesting things to me is if you look back in the US like 200 years ago, you have almost as many bison as you have cows here now. And so it's not, people like to say, oh yeah, we have way too many cows, the greenhouse gas. It's like our land mass sustained that herd for eons, whatever you believe, millions of years, you know? And
Right.
if you look at where those bison were, which is in the Great Plains in the Midwest, that's where like the healthiest soil the world has ever seen.
Right.
That didn't just come like that, you know? It was the bison that were eating the grass, trampling the ground, fertilizing with their manure, and moving to the next spot for a million years that built up that crazy, rich, black, healthy soil.
Yep.
So, yeah, like I said, it's not the cow, man. It's the way that they're managed. And we're finally now learning what that really looks like in nature and being able to replicate that for us with chicken, but, you know, with cows and sheep and pigs and everything else too.
How do you do it with chicken? Because chicken is it's literally a different animal.
Yeah.
What's the
Actually, is a different animal. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you do that? What does that look like over the course of a day, a week, a month?
Yeah. So conventional is all stationary, and stationary is what we do not want. In nature, animals are never stationary. They're always mobile. They're on the move. So you look at cows or chickens, they're gonna eat the grass. They're gonna poop on the ground, and once the grass is pretty much gone and the land's soiled, they're gonna move to the next spot. That's just like an animal would never stay in one spot forever. So we just copy that system exactly. We always say like the closer we can get to nature, the better off we'll be. So we've
What
raised.
do wild chickens do? I don't even know that I've seen a wild chicken. Is there
Well,
such
if you go to say somewhere like Hawaii,
Uh-huh.
you'll see them all over the place. Or if you go to somewhere, say like Thailand or Indonesia, they're the red jungle fowls, like where chickens kind of came from. And we've bred them to grow faster and to be better tasting and stuff since then. But the same principles really do apply. So they're omnivores as opposed to herbivores, which is your cows and sheep. So when we talk about like grains, a lot of times people say, "Oh yeah, I want grain free or like grass fed chicken."
Mhm.
That's not a thing. So like chickens are meant to eat grains. They're omnivores. So they can eat grains. They have a special organ called a gizzard that actually take those grains, it digest it sprouts the grain, and it stone grinds the grain to make it nutritionally available for their system. So like I wish that I could eat grains like a chicken can, but I don't have a gizzard. So it's all about the healthy grains and making sure it's supplemented with grass and forages and bugs and insects and stuff. But the big idea on PastureBird is we're moving every single chicken on our ranch to fresh pasture every single day. So they're getting off of their manure. They're getting the fresh bugs and worms and grass and seeds and fresh air and flowers and sunshine and all this cool stuff. That's really like a natural chicken diet. And then they would supplement them with the grains, but they're moving every single day. So they're putting that manure down to become fertilizer. And then like they're getting the fresh bedding and fresh food all the time too.
And then what happens to the land once they've moved? Like, do you have a process that you put it through, or does it just naturally come back to the way it was?
No, it's a rest period, and it depends on your climate. So like here in Southern California, it's dry and arid. So we're actually not going to graze that again for another 90 days. So you think like they're on it for one day, and then it rests for 89 days after that. So
Wow.
that's where the manure absorbs down into the soil. The soil is like thriving on that manure. It's like the best fertilizer. Monsanto couldn't come up with anything that good. This is like nature's fertilizer, man.
Yeah.
It's like the true good stuff. So it'll absorb down, it'll build up the organic matter in the soil, and then that soil will build a better grass crop the next year around. That's what regenerative ag is like all about. It's every year that we're out there, it's getting better and better all the time.
Right.
And
Now,
the other crazy thing is like 50,000 chickens and you can walk on the farm, it doesn't stink. And that's because it's not stationary.
right.
So when you're like moving the manure around the field all the time, you don't get that smell at all.
So how much space do you have to allot for each chicken? Like, do you have like a square footage that, okay,
Oh yeah.
this much?
Yeah, it's very scientific. So it's mathematical, and it comes down to the manure load that goes into the soil. So right now in our climate, we have a 720 square foot floorless house that the birds live inside of. So you think like it's got a roof, it's got sides on it. The sides roll up and down so the sunshine can come in and all that stuff. But they're living inside of that floorless house. So they're on the pasture. It's not like they have access to the outdoors. It's like they live on the pasture every single day. And there's between 500 and 600 birds inside of each one of those houses. And then that whole house with a truck, we move it every single day to a new spot of ground. So we're making sure that they get off of that manure, they get all those fresh forages and all that good stuff, but they still have protection from predators and hawks and owls and coyotes. And like, we know where the manure is going too. And so we can ensure that they get off of that every day.
Do they go in and out of the house, or is it?
No, they stay in the house. So like with egg layers, a big difference between doing eggs and doing meat birds. The meat birds want to stay in the house. So they want to be near their food and water all the time. So it's all about providing them with fresh pasture every single day. And to do that, like, you have to physically move those birds. With egg layers, they're a lot more active. They don't get big like a meat bird does. So you could leave that house in one spot and just open the doors and they can go out and they're going to go forage. But the meat birds don't really do that on their own. So you're manually moving their housing every single day.
So do they just sit? Do they don't have nests? Obviously, they just sit on the ground. They just
they hang out on the ground and they go up on their perches. They'll run around and chase little mice or, you know, bugs and worms that are in the soil and like flies and all that stuff. So they're super active inside of the house. But the idea is,
do they have windows?
Oh yeah. The whole sides totally roll up. If you go on our Instagram, just at PastureBird, you kind of see what the setup looks like. It's pretty killer, man. It's a cool environment for them. And then the sunshine can come in through the sides in the morning, the evening, when a chicken would naturally be outside in the sun. And then they're going to be in the shade throughout the day because a chicken's like top predator kind of animal. So it's going to get picked off by a host of different predators. So they want to be inside of that jungle cover during the day. So we have the shade roof form during the day. And then it's again in the evening where they get all that sun exposure.
Is it loud in there?
No, it's quiet. It's actually really quiet inside. It's pretty peaceful inside of there. Yeah.
So they don't make a lot of noise.
No, not really. If you stir them up, if you walk in there and you start jumping around or something, then they'll get all ruffled and they'll start balking at you. But for the most part, it's quiet and peaceful in there. And it doesn't stink, which is the weirdest thing. Because it's like, if you ever owned chickens before, even 50 birds, if you leave them in one spot for a few days, like, they're going to smell horrible. You know, it's a lot of manure. But when you're moving them every day, so you can walk in to 600 birds and like, I can have my lunch in there, you know, it's like no problem. And you smell the farm, but it's not like a nasty smell or anything. It's a farm smell.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why my wife doesn't want to have a chicken coop in the backyard. Like I've wanted some layers in the backyard,
for sure,
because I eat eggs a lot. But
now we tell people, man, even 4 chickens in the backyard, you've got to figure out a way to rotate them because they're going to be on their manure, and that's how they spread disease too. So if one bird gets sick, you know, they're eating their food off the ground, which is what we want them to do. They're kind of pecking through the other chicken's manure. And if they're sitting there 3-4 days, 6 months, 5 years, that's a lot of buildup of antibiotic, you know, resistant pathogens, bacteria, all kinds of parasitic activity. So it's really important that we move them off that manure every day.
Oh, that's fascinating. Do you ever, whoops, I thought I had all my text tones turned off. Why did that come? Notification. Do not disturb. Oh, there we go. Now it'll be off. Shut off everything else but my computer.
Yeah, I apologize if mine does the same thing. I don't know.
No worries. Did you ever have a point at which you were like, this is just not going to work? Like, as great as it seemed to be going, like, we got to throw in the towel. Like, this just won't continue.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, I never doubted the ecology aspect of it. So like that part works. I've seen soil get healed and like grow amazing crops from almost nothing using animal impact only, you know, no fertilizer or anything like that. But the business side of it's a whole different ballgame. So there's a lot of places that, you're sustainable agriculturally or regeneratively and stuff. But if you're not business sustainable, then you're not going to be around. So you might as well not even bother with the ecology part if you can't sustain a business. So there was one point about a year in. So we started raising these birds outside. Everybody loved it. We were having a blast. Like, it was cool. And we would buy about 500 chicks at a time. And usually we'd harvest 500 birds. But what happened is about a year in, we'd buy 500 chicks. And we went to harvest, we'd have like 300 birds. Or the next month we'd do 500 and we have like 200 birds that would actually go back into the freezer. And it was like, what the heck's going on, you know? So finally one night we just stayed up the whole night and we just saw these coyotes like pouring into the fence line, man. Really? Like 5, 10, 15 coyotes taking 4 birds each. And like, it was brutal, man.
So you were feeding the wildlife in the area.
Oh, they were like fat coyotes, man. Those things were like sumo coyotes. Yeah. And we were just like, man, you know, I was trained as a sniper commander in the Marine Corps. So I'm thinking, all right, this is easy. We're going to jump up in a blind. I'm going to plug away at these things all night. And like, we're going to fix the problem. But the first night I'm sitting up there in the blind and I'm thinking, dude, this just doesn't jive. Like, we're trying to participate with nature and like take part in its bounty and all this stuff. And now I'm going to sit here and plug away at coyotes, like wildlife. Good job. You know, kill wildlife for a career. Like, nice.
Yeah, and then you got to find more snipers because you can't do that full time.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm gonna have a sniper
50,000
brigade out
birds.
there pretty soon.
Imagine with 50,000 birds, how many snipers you'd need.
I've been playing my whole team. Yeah, so it didn't make sense, man. And I'm sitting up there in the blind. I jump on Google and like, how are other farmers doing this throughout the country? Because we had no experience. We didn't know what we were doing at all.
Yeah.
And there was this thing called livestock guardian dogs. And I was like, oh, cool. Like fight nature with nature. Like, how's this going to work? You know? And there's these breeds, 4 common breeds in the US of dogs that they're not herding dogs, but they're actual guardians. So they'll sleep most of the day and then they'll kind of wake up around dusk and they'll just patrol the fence. And I was like, dude, even if this isn't real, like what a cool story. You know, I got to try this. So we bought a couple dogs off of Craigslist, literally went and found
what kind of breed are these?
So dogs? It's called a Great Pyrenees is the most common one. That's the one everybody kind of knows. It looks like a golden retriever, but it's all white, really beautiful. And then Anatolian Shepherd is the other one. So Anatolian's from the Anatolian Mountains in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And these breeds have been with livestock for 10,000 years. Like there's stories of them, you know, BC times, like protecting sheep, and they'd be up with the shepherds in the mountains. And that's really how the shepherds protected their flocks and stuff at night, was these livestock guardian dogs. And so there's no training really involved. We bought the first dogs, kind of took them back from the Craigslist world. We put them out on the farm and
they just know what to do.
Dude, no, so they instantly fell asleep and we're like, oh, we got lemons.
Oh no.
Yeah. What are we going to do? Like we just wasted our last $500. Like we're going out of business. This is it, man. We're done.
Right.
And sure enough, you know, sun went down and they're 4 months old. They're like puppies and they woke up and they just started walking around the fence, like sniffing out the fence, barking all night long at every little thing. Wow. And now in 4 years.
Whoops. Lost your feed. Hold on.
Did I lose you there?
Okay, there we go. Yep, I lost you there for a sec.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't keep happening. That's let's see.
Is that your phone cutting in?
Yeah, it's just a phone call coming in. I'm not sure how to turn that off. So
if you go into your settings and shut off cellular, because you're on Wi-Fi, right?
Is that yeah? Here we go.
Yeah, it's the little green button.
Perfect. Do I still have you?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, perfect. So these dogs just started patrolling, dude, completely on their own. We had no training. It was 100% instinctual, and they just started cruising around the property. And now, 4 years in since that day, and I think we have 24 dogs now between all the different paddocks and properties and stuff. We haven't lost a single chicken to a predator, which is pretty insane. Like,
wow.
Literally, we owe the success of the business to like these dogs, which is pretty cool.
That's incredible.
And I'm not going to say the dogs have never eaten some of the chickens, because they definitely have, but at least the coyotes aren't eating like an exorbitant amount anymore.
Are the dogs, I mean, is that a natural thing for the dogs to eat a chicken? Like, is that a normal thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you look at ancestral health and the foods movement, like they're all ancestors of the wolf. So they're definitely meant to eat a carnivore, kind of 95% raw meat diet. Yep. And so our dogs, like we've trained them to delineate between a live chicken and a dead chicken. We don't want them chasing our live chickens around, but we can feed them chicken, or we can feed them, you know, beef organ meats and hearts and livers and like offcuts of pork that aren't selling or whatever. So yeah, the dogs like thrive on that kind of a diet for sure.
You know what I love about that story is you were literally up waiting to snipe one of the coyotes and you pulled Google out on your phone. Like it happened. Sure. Like I love that it took you actually trying to solve the problem on your own and actually being engaged in doing and solving it in order to come up with the idea. You would never, like, you might not have ever had the idea to have the dogs had you
absolutely
gone out to snipe yourself. Like,
yeah, we always said this business has been like shoot, then point the gun ever since the beginning, you know?
Right.
There was no books. There was no research that went into it. There was no internship where we went and worked on another person's farm for a while. All that stuff is great. I'm not saying it's a problem, but in farming, a lot of times people get caught up in trying to plan out exactly how it's going to look. And we just jumped in with a set of principles, you know, like we want to raise chicken as close to nature as possible. We want to provide like really healthy pasture raised meats that are raised outside of a factory farm setting. Yep. And from that, you know, like we're open to whatever that looks like after that.
How, so when you keep saying was it your wife and you?
No. So,
who else is we?
It was my 2 brothers-in-law and my father-in-law that started it together. And so we were all working full-time jobs at the time. I was a CPA. My brothers were a high school teacher, and then a med school student, and then my father-in-law was a contractor. So it was
Wow.
like the what was it, the village people, like just such random, like not anything useful backgrounds. And then all of our wives too, like so random, dude. Pilates instructor. My wife's an interior designer. We have somebody who rolled out a skincare line, a teacher, just no ag background, but like honestly, because this is so outside of the box and outside of what's normal, I'm glad nobody went to ag school or came from an ag background, because it almost makes it harder when your dad and your grandpa did things a certain way, and changing that way is almost like insulting. It's saying that you guys did a bad job or something, we don't have that. And so we actually have it a lot easier than a lot of the ag folks out there that are trying to transition from, say, feedlot beef to regenerative, holistically managed grass-fed beef. That's
Because you got to undo a lot of stuff in order to change, in order to move into a new way of doing things.
And you're almost like insulting those that came before you.
Right.
It's very hard. That's a very hard dynamic.
I mean, you and I both experienced that in the Marine Corps. I mean, it's really, really difficult to go into a new unit and establish new SOPs or protocols or whatever it is you want to do when they've been trained for years to do it a certain way.
Yep.
God, that's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's ingrained. It's like easier to start from scratch almost than it is to take that and change it. But there are people doing it across the country. It's happening all the time. Sadly, a lot of times because they go broke, doing it the conventional way, and it's just not working. You see that in dairy all the time now.
Is it harder to make ends meet conventional farming than it is doing it the way you're doing it?
Well, you just see people losing their ranch constantly now. It's really sad. It's like the number one epidemic is just our nation's like farmer population is collapsing. And that doesn't surprise me at all, because you look at these factory farms and the CAFOs and the feedlots, and I don't want to work in that environment. Like I would have kept my desk job if that was the alternative, or I would have, these kids, they grow up on the farm and it's hard work and it's kind of nasty and gross, and it's the city life calls, and you go be a doctor or a lawyer. Like why would you go back to that and make 20 grand a year? So,
right.
I think the supply and demand is hitting now though, and it's going to be a hard one to keep up with. So to make ends meet, no, I mean, it's easier to probably do it conventionally because there's a template totally laid out for you. You can go plant 10,000 acres of corn and soybeans, and the price you're going to get, who's going to do it. And it takes a lot of hard work, but it doesn't take a ton of creative thinking and outside of the box. You just kind of do your thing. To start a business from scratch and pioneer, way riskier, but way more fun too.
Where did you get that internal drive to want to take on an experiment like this? I mean, this is not something that everybody would just go and do.
Yeah, man. I feel like a lot of the same stuff that drove us to serve the country in the military is the same stuff that drove me to like do this. I think our country is at a crossroads with the way that we consume food, and that spans from meat all the way to plants and everything else. And I think we're really looking down the barrel of a pistol as far as like the health of our soil goes and the health of our people. And yeah, I think I got into paleo in 2007 along with CrossFit kind of at the same time, and just my worldview started to shift. And you look at the way that the body was really meant to eat foods and to move and to sleep and to do all this cool stuff that you guys do in the Whole Life Challenge, and like that transformed the way that I eat, the way that I vote, the way that I want to devote my life's passions to this project of like providing a good welfare for animals, super nutrient dense food, like environmentally conscious, like regenerative agriculture. It was the triple bottom line. Like I couldn't keep doing my desk job anymore. I was like hooked.
Right. When you discovered that in 2007, were you still in the Marines then? I don't know the timeline.
Yeah, so I was actually just getting in. I was first year lieutenant, and the whole Rob Wolf and Paleo Solution and like all that CrossFit was hitting the military hard right at that time. And so I was right in there with that. It made so much sense. I'd never thought about food affecting the way you feel before. I've never thought of food like affecting the way you perform. And in infantry officer course, it's a tough one, and I'm lagging behind, and I've got really sore knees and elbows and joints and all this stuff. And my guys that are exercising well and taking care of their bodies are flying past me. And it's like, man, I'm 22, all American athlete in college. Like these guys shouldn't be passing me right now. What's going on? And so it just 2 weeks into paleo, and I felt like a new person again. And just,
wow.
It was a game changer for me and my whole family too.
when you made that shift, because I remember back, I didn't go to IOC. I went to TBS, and then I
Yep.
went to combat engineer school. But
Yep.
back when I did it, our favorite thing to do was to leave base, go out the back gate in Quantico, and head to McDonald's and have chicken nuggets,
For sure, man.
quarter powders. I mean, we would just stuff that stuff down, like, because we could. Like, there was,
Yeah.
and I didn't even think about. I did not ever think about the consequences that could have been bad.
Yeah, totally. But even in the basic school, you start to go through some pretty rigorous activity, and like,
Oh yeah.
I just felt such a difference when I took care of my body and ate well compared to when I didn't. And
Yep.
to me, especially when you got to IOC, which is even more demanding in a lot of ways,
Yep.
it was all the difference in the world, you know. And then you start having children and taking care of somebody else's diet, then it gets real, you know. It's like, this isn't just about me anymore. Like, I gotta try to give this kid the best chance that they can.
Right.
And then it gets really real. And what happened is, even after going paleo, started putting the right types of foods into my body, I started learning more about the quality of foods. And so trying to buy free range meats and cage free and grass fed and organic and all this stuff. And the deeper we dove, the more we realized it's just marketing jargon. I mean, it's literally BS.
Yeah.
And that pissed us off to the point of buying 50 chicks for ourselves to basically put in the backyard.
So do you today, where do you get your eggs from? Like, do you have layers that your family eats from?
So we're a broiler meat chicken farm. That's our main focus. But we have about 200 layers on the farm, so it's enough for us and our employees and friends and family and stuff like that. So yeah, I produce my own. But what I always say on eggs is to get to know the guy at the farmer's market, ask him good questions, ask to see pictures of the farm, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think my wife gets our eggs from Whole Foods, and she always buys the expensive ones. But from what you're saying, that probably doesn't matter.
It doesn't mean that they're good because they're expensive,
Right.
particularly at Whole Foods. They're like the big ones on that. So they'll mark something up and they'll put pretty branding on it, and we all fall for it. I mean, we're all human beings. Like, we're all just trying to do our best. But that's really where it pisses me off. So factory farming serves its place. It's cheap food for the masses. There's a lot of people that just try to get by, you know, and that's like, I totally get that. And it's fine. If you're being transparent, you're doing factory farming and just trying to produce cheap food, no problem. Like, do your thing, you know? What bothers me though is the people like you and me that are trying to do right by our family and our kids. And you've got kids that are going through crazy issues now, and they're dealing with autism and, you know, cancer and all these things. And like, you're trying to put the best food possible into these kids' bodies, and you're paying for labels, you know. And it's like hardworking people like you and me that it's not like just expendable income. Like, we're sacrificing to put this food on our plates. And that's what really started to bother me the most, was the idea that these big corporate companies are slapping labels on stuff, and it's not any different than what you'd find, you know, at Costco or Walmart or whatever. And it's just, I don't know, man. That's what sparked the fire for us. Like, we got to make the change just for our family. Yep. And it turned out that other people wanted to be part of that too.
Now, is your family involved in this at all too? Like, I know your in-laws are all the big part of this business. Do they just think you've lost your mind when you did all this, or
yeah,
like,
dude? I mean,
how has your family been part of the journey?
Supportive, of course, but like, we're from Seattle, you know, we're from an urban area. So for me to even go into the military, it was like, dude, what are you doing? And now farming, they're like, you've lost your mind, man.
Oh, you didn't come from a long line of former Marines?
Yeah, no, not so much.
Where did you go to college?
We did undergrad at Concordia University down here in Irvine. So I just got tired of the rain and just like wanted to get out, and did undergrad down here. And then I went back after the military to UCLA to do my MBA. Cool. And had a good time up there. And yeah, I love school, man, lifelong student kind of thing, but it's good to get out and make some money too.
So I want to ask you this question in terms of your journey. Who's had the most profound impact? Is there one person? Is there multiple people?
Yeah, man. I mean, I would say the two biggest ones in this space are Rob Wolf was the first one to open my eyes completely, and to just be like, I remember that Paleo Solution podcast, man. I was an avid listener. And when you haven't ever thought of things that way before, he's got a way of breaking down a complex subject and bringing it into layman's term. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, you know, I can't think in that way, but he had a way to break stuff down to the point where it's like, man, that makes an insane amount of sense, you know? And then on the more farming side, it was Joel Salatin, who was just really the same way of just providing this template of like, when you move animals across a field, when you follow nature's lead, like when you look at it as, don't try to cram, a system into your box. Like, let's try to figure out a system that fits into nature's way of doing it, and we're going to be a lot better off in the long run.
Right.
Huge impact. Two other guys that are like more random for sure. One guy is named Dave Ramsey. He's a big financial guy.
Yeah, he's a financial
Yeah,
guy.
big debt free. Just and he has some business stuff, but some personal stuff too, and just the idea of like trying to avoid debt at all costs and to try to grow stuff a little more organically. So we didn't ever take the USDA loans, or the military veteran. You can get a big fat loan to start a business, and I'm glad we didn't, man. Honestly, I think starting without the crux of like having that huge payment hanging over our heads and being able to like really focus on reinvesting profits to build the business in the beginning, that was huge for us.
Yeah.
And then another guy, just again random, but a Christian pastor called Mark Driscoll. He's out of Arizona and kind of out of Seattle, where I grew up too. And just the way that all those things that kind of came together all at once to kind of form like the PastureBird, the Primal Pastures idea of like, let's attack this thing,
Was that connected to when you had your first child or when you got married? Like, was there any other life events that occurred around the same time?
Well, my whole family sort of like took paleo on shortly after I did. And my father-in-law, I mean, he lost about 100 pounds without changing lifestyle stuff, just on diet. And he
What
pretty much
were
did
some of the
paleo.
big changes he made? Like, what were some of the big things he cut out or added in?
I would say we all pretty much started on paleo, and then we sort of like riffed off of that, Weston A. Price or keto or like, but it's all pretty much comes back to the idea of ancestral eating.
Yeah, but what did you guys let go of? And like, what were you eating before that you had to, that your dad say eliminated, your father-in-law eliminated,
I mean, breads and pastas were a big part of the diet for sure. I'd say dairy, like milk, was a huge part of the diet. Sugar, even though we weren't like fiends on sugar or something, but you don't realize in a normal like American life how sugar is just in everything, like everything. High fructose corn syrup, refined sugar, all this stuff. Legumes were kind of like a big one that was bothering quite a few people in the family, and not really knowing it, but just getting that leaky gut kind of thing figured out. Beer, like we all enjoy beer here and there still, which is fine, but having that 2-3 beers a night kind of thing, like that really starts to add up on you after a while.
Yeah, I remember back in the old days, beer, like if I had suggested that I at one point would like to drink Corona Light more than I like any other beer in the world, I would have laughed you right into oblivion. Like, come on, get the hell out of here. But now, like, the only beer I really drink, because it's really super low in gluten and super light, like it's one of the only beers that I actually enjoy to drink. So that'll be the beer I look for, Corona Light.
There you go. Nice. I like that. There you go. Spend your money on chicken, save your money on beer.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really interesting how that all kind of came together around the same time, and how the results you guys got. Like, that's really, really remarkable.
Well, and we're in the right place at the right time too. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it was us just being awesome. Like, we're in Southern California.
Right.
Unbelievable place to start a farm,
Right.
like
Right.
Joel Salatin says, there's pros and cons to any place you want to start a farm in the world. The cons here being the land is like insanely expensive. Yep. Regulations are super high. So zoning has been an issue for us. Like, we've gotten in some big trouble in the past, not really knowing. We didn't know any better and just get the wrist slapped. And then it's dry. Like, we don't really get rain here. So you talk about pasture raised livestock in Southern California, it's almost like an oxymoron because it's just dry as heck. But the advantages are I got 22 million people within 90 minutes of the farm.
Right.
We've had 12,000 people out for tours in the last 5 years. Like, we can distribute so quickly to all these amazing restaurants and like consumers that do really want to eat better food. They don't realize that they're not getting better food a lot of times, but I'd say everybody that's out there trying to buy free range and organic chicken, like they think that they're getting what we do and they're really not. But you have a lot of people that want to buy the right kind of food and support a healthy environment and stuff. So like being here in 2012 when we started the farm, like, I mean, it was gnarly, but it was like, we're one of the only farms down here, which is pretty insane.
How many other people do what you do around the country? Like, is this
thousands? Oh yeah.
Oh really? The same way?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Similar.
Like,
obviously, yeah.
I'm not going to say the exact same, but like daily moves. So we're moving the chickens every single day. We're rotating the sheep and the cows using electric fencing. The cows are only getting grass no grains, no feedlots, no pellets, none of that stuff. They're only eating grass off the ground. The chickens are like moving every day. They're getting no antibiotics or drugs or vaccines. There's, organic feed on one program, really good high quality feed that's not organic on another program. But like really, really something you wouldn't find in the grocery store. That's happening across the country. It's a huge movement that's like sweeping the country right now at a really small scale, which is what's holding it back right now. So like,
Right.
when you go to the store and you can find a chicken for $8 in the supermarket, it's kind of hard to justify paying 25 or $30 for the kind of bird that we do. And that's all due to scale. So you've got a million people doing it at a really small scale. Our idea was like, let's try to scale this up a little bit, try to bring prices down as much as possible to get it more accessible to the normal person.
And tell me about that side of the business. So you guys, how do you supply the people that you supply, and what is your reach, and how do people who gets it? Because you're not a direct to consumer
Right.
retailer.
Yeah. So here's what's a trip, man. There's 9 billion chickens slaughtered for meat in the US every single year.
Wow.
So like we'll do about 250,000 birds this year. And that's not even considered a small farm. That's considered like a micro scale farm.
Wow.
So a small farm in California is doing maybe 500,000 or a million birds a week, And so like, I mean, it's just a huge industry. Every day in Southern California, there's $400 million spent on food. I mean, it's just unbelievable numbers when you get into the food industry and how big it really is and how many people are out there,
Right.
Our reach is small because we're small, but it's bigger than anybody else doing pasture raised poultry. So like we sell to maybe 40, 50 different restaurants around Southern California, Northern California, Arizona. We sell nationwide through a couple different retail partners. We sell through Crowd Cow, through Primal Pastures, through Vital Choice Seafoods. We distribute the product fresh or frozen, depending on what market it's going into, a lot of different parts and pieces or whole birds. Like the business is definitely complicated when you start to get into it and dive into the weeds. But I mean, we've been lucky that chefs are now kind of coming around to this idea that like the cool thing is it actually tastes better too. So the animal doesn't grow as fast because they're out exercising all day long, every single day. So they're burning a lot more calories. But because they're living on the pasture, they're getting like grass and bugs and seeds and worms and all that natural chicken diet. So that develops like this really rich old school flavor. So now it's getting picked up by a lot of the best chefs, in California, because they like the flavor of the bird and the story, and like the ecological aspect of it matters to them. Where I would say 10 years ago, it would have been a pretty tough sell,
What are some of the most famous restaurants that use you guys as your supplier, as their supplier?
Yeah, I mean, our first 2 wholesale accounts ever were the LA Lakers and the LA Dodgers. So the team chefs came in with their nutritionists and they were like, I know you guys don't sell wholesale, but like we're feeding these, players and we're paying them $5 million a year. Like, what is it for us to pay an extra 50 cents a pound for good meat,
Yep.
So Dr. Kate Shanahan, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She floats around the LA scene quite a bit, but she's a nutritionist and she was a team nutritionist for the Lakers. So she kind of came out and she's like, no, this is what we're committing to. So we started working with them.
Wow.
Then the Dodgers came right after that. And then Wolfgang Puck's a good client of ours. Morton's and Mastro's are big restaurants in LA and in Southern California. Lots of like smaller restaurants that are hot LA kind of joints that are using our stuff now. So yeah, it's been really cool to see. Like grass-fed beef has been a tough one, right? Because a lot of people don't think it tastes as good as grain-fed beef.
Right. My wife has a hard time eating grass-fed beef. Like she won't.
Exactly.
She's not a full convert.
Yeah, and it's like you get it. It's better for you. The omega-3/6 ratio is dialed. It's better for the environment. It's better, but if it doesn't taste good,
right? Kind
of a hard sell, man. Like, yeah, I get it, but
she'll do the ground beef, but she won't do the steak.
I get that too, because it doesn't marble out quite as nice, and you don't get that same nice tenderness to the steak. So now I say that there are people now that have figured out how to do grass-fed beef the right way, and they're finishing it as good or better than feedlot stuff for sure.
Right.
But you can also find really bad quality grain-fed beef out there, or grass-fed beef.
Yep.
Chicken though is cool because it's a lot more consistent. So like it tastes as good or better pretty much no matter what as a factory farm chicken.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Yeah, and I don't know that I don't know that I would know whether I've actually had what would be considered like a bird like your bird, because
Yeah.
I buy them with a label that has, I mean, I've done some crowd cow stuff before. I don't know if I bought
Okay.
chicken from crowd cow. In fact, I'm sure I haven't, because
Yeah.
most of the chicken we get from, I don't even know where we get our chicken from. Should start finding this out.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like levels. It's like an onion, man. It's this whole world where it's like, all right, you got the thing now. We want to like feed our body the best ingredients possible. It's going to affect the way we feel and perform and all this stuff. But then you peel back one onion and it opens up a new truth and then the next truth. So like we talk about meat labeling all the time, because you can walk into the store and see free range and you think, oh yeah, like it's got, free range. That must mean it's outside.
Mm-hmm.
Now the reality of like the free range label though is access to the outdoors is what's required by law.
You mean capable of seeing, or could get out there if they wanted to, maybe?
Technically, they could go outside as long as you open a door. So, like, we should back up. So, 99.999% of the chickens in the U.S. and in developed countries are raised indoors in what's called a barn, so a grow house. 600 feet long, 40 feet wide, 40,000 stroke birds inside of there. You've seen the pictures. Like, that's what it looks like. That's your sort of standard chicken barn. You take a door at the very end of that house and you open it for 2 hours a day, the chickens aren't going to go outside. First of all, they're meat birds. They want to stay close to the feed and the water and the shade.
Yep.
So no matter what, it's 110 degrees outside, Fresno, no food or water or shade out there. As long as you open that door, though, they had access to the outdoors. So now that's free range. So now we can charge an extra $1 a pound for the meat, $2 a pound, a dozen for the eggs. Why wouldn't you do that as a big marketing company,
right? Yeah,
that runs these farms? Then you have like organic, you think organic. Well, in my mind, leading up to this, that should mean same thing. Like chickens are outside. They're not getting any pesticides or drugs or any of that stuff. Not really, man. Still, like those birds.
Lost you for a sec. You there?
Your cellular trick didn't work for me.
It didn't work? How are you getting phone calls with your?
Maybe I pushed the wrong thing. It's the little, it's like the antenna with the little things coming off of it, right?
Yeah. Unless you have your phone set up for Wi-Fi calling, maybe you're getting Wi-Fi calls.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll just hope they don't call back.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I mean, organic chicken's like not any better. It's the same idea as free range. So the chickens could live inside of this thing 24/7, 365, never see the light of day. They're going back and forth from the grain to the water. They're pumping them full of all kinds of, organic approved subtherapeutic antibiotics and stuff that are approved under that system. And it's just a bad life. I mean, if you walked into an organic chicken farm manufacturing facility, really,
yep,
you would not know any difference from a conventional one. And that, I think, is not what people expect when they see organic.
Yeah, it's funny because last night we went to Whole Foods. We just got back from a trip to Chicago and we were gone for 10 days. And we had nothing in the fridge. So we went out. I made salad for my dinner. And I usually don't go to the store to buy eggs. So I'm looking through the eggs. And we normally get these dozen eggs that are, they have a certain color. The label's like brown. I don't know what that means, but whatever. They're organic and they say, I don't even know what they say. I don't remember now what they say, but I noticed this other packaging that was they came in 18 eggs, and they're, instead of being a typical like cardboard 12 dozen eggs, it was
right.
18, and it was like a see-through like plastic, which I don't really like, but but it had really fun artwork on it. And the artwork all said pasture raised and farm, like all these. And I had this vision of these nice, happy little chickens running around and laying their eggs and pulling the worms out of the ground, the early bird worm, the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And now I feel duped. Well,
not necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying that they're all fake. I guess what I'm saying is that they can easily be manipulated. They often are. So that company, I'm pretty sure you're talking about Vital Farms eggs. They've made a pretty good dent on this pasture raised egg thing. And the idea of pasture raised is supposed to be that the chickens are living outside. Not that they have access to the outdoors, but that they like actually live outside. So what I would say is I've seen folks that call themselves pasture raised that don't have a blade of grass. I've seen free range that never goes outside. I've seen antibiotic free that actually got antibiotics its entire life. The bottom line is you just can't trust the label. We got to get really back to like trusting the farm and the actual source and knowing where your food came from. And the cool thing is it's easier than ever now. You know, the 21st century, you can go find me online 24/7, and you can see I'm posting every single day pictures from our farm and videos, and trying to get out there and do podcasts like this and actually, you know, virtually meet people, if not in real life. And we've done, like I said, 12,000 people for real life farm tours where you can come and actually, in the military, we say inspect what you expect, you know. And I think that's what we have to get back to. These labels are all bastardized at this point. You can take advantage of all the loopholes and all that stuff. So
if we all just take responsibility to inspect, or be our own inspectors, really.
Absolutely.
That's really what we're talking about. Like, if when you go to the farmer's market, talk to the farmers and talk to the guys that are bringing the food, and be willing to, it's going to cost more, but you know, like what level of responsibility do you want to take for the food that goes in your body?
I mean, in reality, yeah, it may cost more, but it also may not too. Because when you develop that relationship, you know, with an actual farmer, maybe they have stuff that's not moving. Maybe they have some beef roasts that are just sitting in their freezer and they want to get rid of them. And, you know, those are just as packed with nutrients and filet mignon, you know? Yep. So you could go pick something up for cheap, or maybe you get to, you know, there's a million ways. Maybe you decide you want to buy a half cow, because that's really the best and most efficient way to buy these meats. And you could get that for way less if you're going shopping at Whole Foods or Erewhon or one of these more upscale markets. Like, dude, you could probably buy it for 50% of what you buy it for at one of those places. So there are ways to do it on a budget and to do it economically, but you just want to make sure that you can trust where your food is coming from. And like Joel Salatin likes to say, you know, we live in an age where people spend 10 times as much energy figuring out who the mechanic is to fix their car than they will on the food that they're putting into their body, you know. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. It's true.
Insane, right? Like, why do we care so much about our cars?
Yeah.
When you look at your body, like, it's a question that has plagued me for 20 years since I got into the business of health and well-being and looking at people's bodies. And, you know, somebody will make a $600 car payment.
Yeah.
And
right.
balk at going anywhere except the cheapest place they can get their dinner.
Totally. You know? Or that home entertainment system, or that extra bedroom on your house, or that backyard remodel. I mean, it's all priorities. And that's one thing that totally shocked me getting into this is we set up our cost structure so that we be economically sustainable. You know, we're not rich by any means, but like we've been able to stay in business for 6 years because we set our cost structure to a point where we can afford it.
Yep.
And I thought, man, this is expensive. Like, kind of sucks. We're producing food for rich people. But back in the day, we used to make home deliveries. Like, we'd actually drive to people's houses and drop the food off. And what shocked me was you're pulling up to small apartments, dude. Like, you're pulling up to places with not very nice cars. Like, the people that are buying this food are the ones that are really making a sacrifice to put good food in their body and putting that above other stuff. Right. It wasn't. I mean, to this day, we don't sell. It's not food for rich people by any means. It's like, what do you prioritize in your life?
Yeah, because I think there are so many people that could afford a higher level of quality of food. It's just a matter of distribution and choices, you know. And
absolutely,
how do you want to make those choices? And then,
are you educated enough to know that, like, you don't have to buy the New York steak? That's going to be 5 times more expensive than the ground beef, you know, stuff like that. You buy that whole chicken and learn how to just cut it, which can take 30 seconds. And you'll save right there. You save 50% on your grocery bill, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to get back to getting real food, but still, if you're on a budget, to make it work.
You know, I was going to say, given the level of success you've achieved, I mean, to a lot of people, to me, I mean, you're incredibly successful at doing what you're doing. How do you feel like you're still figuring things out? Like, where are you not a success at this point? And what are you working on next? Like, what are some of the struggles you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think what we've noticed is there's a gap in the market right now. So there's 1,000 people doing this at a tiny micro scale, and then it jumps up to 1 million birds a week. And like, that disparity is a problem to me. Like, nobody's filling that sort of middle market void with an actual good pasture raised product. So the problem is, especially with broiler chickens, is like, nobody's done that. Nobody's crossed that bridge. Nobody's figured out how to do that. So at PastureBird, the whole idea was, let's figure out how to scale this up to the point where we can bring prices within that whole sort of free range organic ballpark, so that the folks that want to get good stuff can actually get it. And it's distributed widely. and you can find it in grocery stores. But what we found is like it's a technology gap. We don't really have the technology to produce 500,000, a million birds a week on pasture in a daily move system. So we're like in the middle of.
When you say technology, do you mean just like knowing how to do it, or do you mean actual like hardware and software and technology?
Legitimately hardware and software is going to have to come into this, and that's what gets us excited too, is like, okay, we can move 600 birds with a truck and we can fill it up by hand with buckets and stuff, but like we're never going to touch the efficiency of the big industry doing everything manually.
Right.
How do we automate some of this stuff? Like, how do we make this work at scale? So I'm literally working with PhDs and NASA scientists and like trying to figure out what does the future of chicken sort of look like in this regenerative non-drug way. Because another big thing that we're running up against is antibiotic resistance, superbugs. When we're using these subtherapeutic human grade antibiotics in a lot of the chicken production that we do, your little kid's going to go into the hospital and all of a sudden they got MRSA, and it can't be treated because the antibiotics are resistant because they've been injecting or they've been consuming products that have had like tons of antibiotics in them.
Yep.
Huge problem. And it's like coming to a, huge spike right now. And if you look at the charts, antibiotic resistance is a major one that we're going to have to deal with in the next 10 years.
Yep.
So we think that there is a future at a large scale pasture-based poultry and beef and pork and everything else. But like we're figuring out how do you even do that, and that's what's fun for us right now.
Do you think some of it is in autonomous cars, like or obviously not cars, but like tractors, or is that one of the problems? Moving these things around, like
how do you move? Yeah, I mean, how do you move 30,000 chickens at a time to fresh pasture? Like
Right.
that's insane. If you went out and you saw what that would look like, it just doesn't exist right now. So like we're having fun solving those challenges and figuring it all out. And even there's still like some, secret sauce kind of confidential stuff that we're working on. We're like stoked about,
Oh, cool.
But what does the future of poultry really look like? To me, it's not stationary, it's mobile. And like, we're excited to roll that out and show that that can be done at a large scale.
I think it's really cool too that you're relying on dogs. I mean, like talking about a low tech, you wouldn't have business without dogs. Period.
Totally.
Like
it's gnarly, man.
You would not exist. So like
at the end of the day, when you're like
with 30,000, you got 50,000 chickens. So a farm with 5 million chickens, how many dogs would you have?
It's gonna be crazy. Yeah, I mean, they'll be sectioned off. There's all this challenges that we're thinking through right now. It's crazy.
You need farmers to take. I'm not farmers, but you need dog handlers to take care of all the dogs because it's a whole nother business inside your farm.
What was the quote? The machine of the future is like a man watching the machine and a dog watching the man to make sure the man doesn't touch the machine, something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's great. What are some of the ways, because it sounds like you have a lot going on, what are some of the ways that you keep yourself organized? Like, how do you keep all this stuff together? Do you use your CPA skills? Do you use a computer? Do you have apps you use that are your favorite go-to to keep all this stuff together?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Like, thankfully, we're doing this business in the 21st century, and there's so much tech that's applicable to what we do now. I couldn't imagine trying to keep the paper records and stuff that a lot of the farmers are still doing across the country. It's brutal, like, I mean, it's sad when I see it, and they're spending a lot of time and energy on this stuff that's just so easy to automate now. But we've also built a team, dude. Like, that's probably my biggest thing is we started out with just family. Yeah. And when you come from a non-farm background and you get into farming, especially livestock, it's 7 days a week, man. Like, it was the most eye-opening, like, revolutionary thing to me ever. It's cool for like a month or 2 or 3 months, and then pretty soon 6 months has gone by and you've worked every single day, like, right, not taking a break. Like, and then a year goes by and you've still never taken a single day off. And it's like, right, dude, this is insane, So finally we got to the business to the point where we're able to start hiring 1 guy, then 2 guys, and then 3 guys. And pretty soon, like, finally go on a vacation kind of thing. And like, that's been cool to look at this, not just as a farm, which is romanticized and like people will take a loss at it because it's really fun, but more is like, let's look at it as a business that needs to be sustainable financially and even socially. Like, it's not fair to my family to have to work 7 days a week for 2 years straight. Like, we need to be able to have friends and go out, and like kids need to be able to play sports and stuff.
Yep.
Can't just be all consuming. Otherwise it's going to come to a crashing halt. So building a team has been like everything for us.
What are some of the literal ways you guys communicate? Like some of the internal? Do you use Slack? Do you use spreadsheets? Do you use Google Docs? Like, what are some of the methods you guys have come up with that you use that work well for your team?
Yeah, kind of like Slack. My whole team's on Front.
What's
I
that?
mean, we have field guys that don't even have internet, dude. Like some of
Yeah.
our guys are just rad country people that are like, I'm like, yeah, I need your email to like sign you up for payroll. And you're like, sorry, bro, like don't even have it, you know? I'm like, I respect that, man. That's cool.
Right.
But the people that are running the business side of it, we're all on Front, which is kind of like Slack. We use MailChimp for all of our email stuff. We use Shopify for all of our e-commerce.
Uh-huh.
We use QuickBooks. Like I'd say a pretty normal stack for like a normal e-commerce business.
Yep.
Just applied to farming, you know, and it all works. It's all the same. It's all business.
That's cool.
We're all on Apple. Like, yeah, we're all iMessaging every day, and we're on Google Drive and iCloud and Dropbox and all the same stuff as everybody else is, I'd say.
Do you work insane hours? Do you work farmers hours where you're up at 4:00 in the morning and you're doing, and then you're out, your last one to bed, or like, how do you manage your life today?
Yeah, man. I mean, again, we have a team, so I don't have to be out there doing chores every single day. Thank God. I was out there doing them this morning, but that's a rarity at this point because the guys honestly are better at it than I am now. So like, they'll be like, dude, like get out of here. You don't even know what you're doing anymore. We've passed you up like long ago.
Right.
Because I'm selling the product and I'm the one that's doing all the accounting and like HR.
You have your job to do too, right? I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, like it's like the lieutenant that tries to go in and do the Lance Corporal's job.
Exactly.
Really, that's not your job to do the Lance Corporal. You need to know what he does, but you need to do your job.
Well, and if that Lance Corporal's not better at me than basic rifleman skills, he needs to be. Like that's a problem, you know.
Yeah.
So no, man. I mean, I do work crazy hours, but I think I'm just the personality that would, no matter what I'm doing, like I'm gonna give it 150% no matter what. So I'm more of a night owl. So like, I've got young kids right now, so usually I take the mornings kind of easy, and then work usually starts at 8 or 9, and take a little break in the evening to try to hang out with family, and then it's kind of back to the grind. 2, 3 in the mornings, like the normal routine for me.
Wow. So you don't get a lot of sleep.
I should get more for sure. That's like a gap in my life, but I also feel like it's a season with young kids where I just really value that time with my family, and like I'm not willing to just power through, and I'd rather just stay up late for a few years. But no, I mean, I fully support everybody sleeping, put it that way. I'm a big fan and a proponent of that. But for me, 6 hours or 7 hours is it's sustainable. So
yeah, that's cool. Do you work out these days?
Man, I'm a CrossFitter, so like I was CrossFitting maybe 3 days a week, and then I'm also a big beach volleyball player, so I try to play a day or two a week, something like that, and then just walks with the kids and the family, and just in farming in general, like you're getting some pretty good exercise in. And then I was coaching volleyball for a little while, and I haven't been CrossFitting for like the last month, so I'm feeling like a complete skunk right now, dude. Like I need to get back to it. I'm completely jonesing because you got to get that in.
It's also tough to go back, like the first day, because you know how much it's gonna.
Oh man, I'm dreading it, man. I know for sure.
Yeah, you just gotta do it. Like because I've gone through all kinds of ups and downs in my CrossFitting, and then not CrossFitting, and then CrossFitting, and then not CrossFitting, and the just coming back to whatever it is you're gonna come back to. It's just it's gonna suck for a little while.
I'm stoked though out here. I mean, it's not a big town or anything. It's about 100,000 people total, but we have
Redlands. Are you in whereabouts is the farm?
Temecula is the town where we kind of live. Murrieta's right next to it, but that's where.
You know the Gravats? Do you know Jordan Gravat?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that whole family. So I think I wear the shirt. Incinerator.
Nice.
Is Jake Worthington and the Gravat guys, and yeah, that's my box. And then they just transferred over to Turn 2 CrossFit. And ever since they transferred, like I haven't gone in, and not because I don't want to, but same thing, dude. Probably deep down, I'm like nervous about going back because I know I'm going to do those pull-ups, and you get that thing, the dinosaur arms, and just
dinosaur arms, T-Rex arms.
It's coming, man. So I got to get back in.
Jordan does all our video stuff. So
yeah, for sure, nice.
The stuff
He's the man.
We'll shoot for half a day, and we'll shoot like 12 videos or 15 videos, and then he goes back and edits them and gets them out to us. So.
He's a beast, dude. I love that guy. He's a good CrossFitter too. He's actually a super good coach. And Coach
Jake. You ever heard his daughter sing the national anthem?
No.
Oh my God. She
really?
Believe it. She did it for I think she did it for the first CrossFit Games in Carson when they had
no way
fly over. They did a whole thing. She's amazing.
Whoa.
I think, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know if she's in music school or kind of what she's up to, but I'm going to see Jordan on Wednesday. What day is today? I'm going to see him tomorrow. Wow.
No way.
We're shooting videos tomorrow. So I'll let him know that we spoke.
Yeah, man, please do. Yeah, tell him I'll be in soon. I've been lazy, to be honest.
I don't think it's possible for you to be lazy. That those two things don't go together.
Yeah.
So what's going forward? What's your? I know you've already talked about the technology stuff. What is your purpose mission? Are you more dad? Are you more business? Are you a little bit of both? Like what do you see the next 5-10 years looking like?
Well, right now it's a major opportunity, man. Like I can't pass up this time with the technology that's like ready to go, and like the market that wants the product. That's probably the biggest thing is people want it now, man. Like, and they're getting educated to what the differences are, and like that. I mean, people are tired of being duped by labels and stuff. So I just think like we got to push on the gas for the next few years at least, and we would just want to leave a mark on agriculture that we can be proud of.
Yep.
Like I think if we can step away from all this 20 years down the road, and like there is a viable way of putting chickens out on pasture and producing them economically for the average person to be able to get to, and telling that story and educating about like, regenerative agriculture and the way that animals can actually be a huge benefit to the ecosystem. And like some of these arguments, dude, I mean, it's all day with like the militant vegan idea that, oh yeah, you're like, so toxic to the environment, you're killing these innocent animals and like all this. I mean, we can talk about all that stuff too, and it's all valid, in a factory farm setting, but it's also completely invalid when you look at like a regenerative setting. So,
You're right.
If we can just educate too, that's such a big part of all this stuff.
Well, I'm fully on board. I love what you're up to, and I really appreciate you spending the time on the podcast. How do people, if people are inspired, or maybe they live in LA and they want to come out and see the farm in action, what's the best way to engage with you and see?
Yeah, we try to post every single day on socials. So we're just at PastureBird on Facebook and on Instagram. And then in the West Coast, we have an online retailer called Primal Pastures. That's my family's business too. And that's all pasture raised chicken, lamb, beef, pork, wild seafood. So you can buy the products there, but only really on the Western US.
And is that like they deliver it to your door? It's a flash frozen, and then it shows up frozen at your door?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I hope to make it out. I'm gonna see if I can grab my son and maybe my wife and bring everybody.
Well, now you have to, since we're like mutual friends with Jordan and all that. You got to come out
and then you're gonna have to go into the gym and do a CrossFit workout. So
I have to do that anyways. Yeah, it's all right. We keep talking about, you should come down for this. We keep talking about doing like the farm games or something. We want to get a few different affiliates out and go like hit some good, hay bales and pig wrestling and everything else.
You would crush that.
That would be fun. Yeah, I'd be all right with that one.
Chasing chickens.
Yeah, Rambo style.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Paul, thanks again. Just hang tight. I'm gonna shut the live feed off, and then
okay.